maybe bottom of the eighth.
He's got two more years left.
You set it up.
All right, fair enough. Only special geeks like us really like the State of the Union address, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, it's no question that it's news for the political junkies and the folks in the media and on inside the Beltway. But this is the one opportunity any president gets a year where they've got the microphone, the bully pulpit, and no one to ask them questions as they're doing it. And it's an opportunity for them to maybe score some points even when they've had a bad run for a little while. And I would say that this president certainly has had a bad run.
I love it because you get to see people who badmouth the president, then run up to the aisle and shake his hand while he comes down the aisle, something I've never really understood.
Oh, yeah, all pomp and circumstance. It is a tradition, kind of an institution, and again, he still is the leader of the free world, so he warrants that level of respect. In terms of the specifics of tonight, I mean, really, you have to go no further than looking at the guests that he's putting in the box up with the First Lady and Mrs. Biden. That tells basically what his speech is going to be about, because every element of his speech he'll kind of reference who's sitting up there as an example or a validator, if you will, to what he's talking about. And it really seems that tonight's going to be heavy on immigration and health care. And I do suspect that we'll get maybe a little bit of a mea culpa out of him tonight on the health care front, because I think he'll play the empathy card and knowing that we've got, this country has a short-term memory and that it's a forgiving nation, and, saying, hey, no one's perfect, but we're trying to, iron it out, but still healthcare is needed. And, but he's going to also point to the fact that it has worked, like in places like Kentucky, or at least he thinks it's worked, and also highlight elements of immigration, the need for immigration reform. So it'll be interesting to see how it's received around the country and by the media, but but for now, he's going to have an opportunity to make the case.
All right, that's the State of the Union tonight. And but what's interesting about this year, Trey Hardin, is the Republican response, it seems, is being put on by every single member of Congress.
Well, it's true. I mean, not many people watch the response, whether it's Republican or Democrat. One, because they're probably exhausted from listening to an hour-and-a-half speech up there, or and they want to get back to the shows that they've DVR'd or TiVo'd. And frankly, it's at the end of the day, it's just not that interesting or exciting. I mean, it's someone clearly reading off of a teleprompter and countering. You were kind of reading the party talking points, if you will. And, I certainly don't mean to discredit the effort that the Republicans will make tonight, because I think they'll have some important responses and rebuttals and points to make. But, it's not necessarily a real debate. It's not really getting into the issues where you can maybe have both sides talking and kind of a back and forth.
Rand Paul, I heard, is going to release something. He's going to release his own rebuttal on YouTube, and others are going to do it sort of in the privacy of their own. So, I mean, it's almost like because of technology, each faction of the Republican Party can hold their own response to the State of the Union.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, if you remember last year, that he started that in essence, where he gave one that was in essence the rebuttal or response from the Libertarian Party. Which, it's interesting. It's kind of messy right now on the Republican side of things. I mean, you've got the Republican Party, and some refer to it as the establishment Republican Party. I still, after 21 years, haven't figured out what that term means. But then you've got the Tea Party faction, but then the Libertarian faction that is kind of socially moderate, that isn't necessarily where the Tea Party is. I think the Tea Party really is kind of all over the place within the Republican Party right now. So yeah, it is interesting. You see a lot of different. You have a lot of folks that are kind of trying to take the crown of their respective factions.
You know what? I guess it kind of shows to a little bit of how in disarray the Republican Party is, because they're not speaking with one voice as a rebuttal, and so that's sort of half the problem with the Republican Party, is that everyone's trying to be the leader, and when you have nobody behind you, it's kind of hard to be a leader.
It absolutely is the case. I mean, the Republican Party still is a little lost. I think they realize that, though. I think they're taking a lot of positive steps to find themselves. I think, they've recently announced they're going to move up the nomination or the convention in 2016 to June instead of August, so that it gives the nominee a little bit more time to kind of create their own identity, as opposed to just having a month or so to do it after coming out of a very hostile nomination fight. But you and I have talked about this before. At this point, I really believe the Republican Party, they need a candidate who's going to define the party as opposed to a party that defines the candidate. I think that's been the problem too often in the past. Look at McCain and Romney, certainly not the conservative darlings of the party, but yet, they came out of those nomination fights really identified, if you will, by the party apparatus, as opposed to being able to create their own identity. So I think it's time for a change, and maybe someone like Chris Christie, maybe someone like Jeb Bush, or one of these other names will be that person. It'll
be interesting. All right, that's Trey Hardin, ABC News political analyst. Have a happy State of the Union address, and we'll talk to you next Tuesday.
You got it. Take care.
All right, 627 here, Big 550.